67% of you watching this video have been exposed to a toxin so dangerous that it increases your chances of developing lung disease by 300%. It means you're 4.5 times more likely to develop depression and doubles your odds of being hospitalized for an autoimmune disease. And the more of this toxin that you're exposed to, the higher your risk for developing things like chronic health issues, mental health conditions, substance abuse problems, and more. It's not lead or mercury or radioactive waste. It's not even in the food that you're eating. It's toxic stress that results from something that's known in the medical community as ACEs, or adverse childhood experiences. And the scariest thing about ACEs is how common they are. Studies show that 67% of the population have at least one ACE, and 16% have 4 or more ACEs. I am one of that 16%, but I, probably like a lot of you watching this video, had no idea what ACEs were or how big of an impact they can have not only on our bodies and our minds, but all the way down to our DNA. All of this was brand new information that I learned when I started listening to an audiobook called The Deepest Well by Dr. Nadine Burke Harris. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that this book has completely changed my life, because not only did it help me connect a lot of dots in my past, but it also opened my eyes as to how important it is for people like me, and perhaps for people like you, to break the cycle of toxic stress so that we can heal our traumas and avoid passing these harmful patterns and behaviors on to our children. So that's why in today's video, I wanted to share some of the most life-changing lessons that I learned in the book, The Deepest Well, as well as open up a little bit about my own experiences as a childhood trauma survivor and the things that I've done to help me heal and let go of the past. Hi there and welcome to my channel. My name is Marissa and this is A to Zen Life, where I teach people the A to Z of simplifying their homes and restoring balance to their lives. And the reason that I am so passionate about this topic is because I've experienced firsthand how healing it can be to let go of clutter in all its forms, be it physical, mental, or emotional. For those of you who might be new around here, back in 2016, I embarked upon the journey to declutter 30 years of stuff that I'd been hoarding, starting with the death of my mother when I was 9 years old, followed by the loss of my father and my childhood home when I was in my early 20s, as well as multiple other losses and traumas, including losing 8 people in the space of 1 year. So the reason I wanted to make this video is to be able to reach other people out there who are just like me, who have experienced loss and grief and trauma and all the stress and anxiety that goes along with it, and to show you that there is hope and it is possible to heal even the deepest wound. But before we dive in, I just want to make it clear that I am not a psychologist or a trauma expert. I'm just sharing this based on my own experiences and some of the things that I've picked up in my own healing journey over the past 3 decades. So keep that in mind as we continue forward with this video. I think a good place for us to start is answering the question, what are the ACEs? As I mentioned before, ACEs stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences, and there are 10 ACEs in total. The original ACE study was done by Drs. Felitti and Anda in 1998. And they were 2 internal medicine doctors. And what was really interesting is in the book, she talks about how the study actually came about by accident, because Dr. Felitti was working on an obesity study. And there was this one woman in the study named Donna, who was a 53-year-old woman with diabetes who had lost 100 pounds in a program 2 years before. But she ended up putting all of that weight back on in the last 6 months, and Dr. Felitti was trying to figure out why she was backsliding. So in this interview that Dr. Felitti was doing with Donna, he had a slip of the tongue and he asked a certain question wrong, but she answered the slip of the tongue, and in her answer revealed a history of abuse to him that he hadn't known about before. So then after that, he started asking that same question to other people who he was also doing interviews with for the study, and he noticed that a huge number of people who were relapsing and falling out of the program had also experienced similar traumas in the past. So after he conducted these interviews, he was really interested in digging more into the research because this is something that he'd never heard discussed before. And he got connected with Dr. Anda, and what happened is they asked 26,000 people to do the study, and over 17,000 of the Kaiser Health Plan members participated. And they looked at not only their history of ACEs, but also their current health issues and any addictions. And the ACEs include things like divorce, emotional neglect, parental incarceration. And if you want to know your ACE score, I will make sure to link a post down in the description box below that lists out all of the ACEs as well as some facts about them. But I'm not going to say or list all of the ACEs in this video because I'm afraid that the reach of this video might be restricted because of the fact that this is such a sensitive topic, but it's precisely because it is such a sensitive topic that it needs to be seen by as many people as possible. So that's why right now I'm going to ask you to please do something very big and important. Please go down and like this video so that we can let the YouTube algorithm know to show this video to as many people as possible so we can spread the hope and healing. And if this video resonates with you or you know someone who desperately needs to see it, what you can do is go down and hit the little share arrow below this video and share it somewhere, anywhere, whether it's on Facebook or in a text to your best friend, because the more people that see this video, the better. How your ACE score affects your entire life. So going back to the book, The Deepest Well, Dr. Burke Harris did a ton of research into how stress and trauma basically hijack your body's stress response system and disrupt neurodevelopment, which lead to poor physical and mental health outcomes, which in turn can lead to things like disease, disability, social problems, and even early death. And Dr. Burke Harris takes great care to mention that there's a dose-response relationship between ACEs and poor health outcomes. So basically that means the higher a person's ACE score, the greater risk of health issues. And what that means is that when you compare someone that has no ACEs to someone who has 4 or more ACEs, the person with 4 or more ACEs is 2.5 times more likely to smoke, 5.5 times more likely to become addicted to alcohol, 2 times as likely to develop heart disease or cancer, 3.5 times as likely to develop chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and more. And another thing to note is that ACEs are invisible. Like, you can look at a person and they might seem like they have this beautiful, amazing life, but deep down inside their heart, they're carrying around this heavy weight of their past that you didn't even know was there. As I said earlier in this video, I am one of the 16% who has 4 or more ACEs, and I don't think that I'm comfortable sharing my exact ACE score here because there's things that I have never discussed on this channel, but I can tell you that my ACE score is more than 5 and less than 10. So that brings us to the question, are you living with a bear? Dr. Burke Harris has such a way with words, and it's amazing to me when I was listening to this book how she can explain all of this deep, super science-y stuff, but still make it really, really easy for a layperson like me to understand. And one of the stories she uses to explain early trauma is a scenario where you're walking through a forest and you see a bear. So your brain fires up your stress response system, your pupils dilate, your heart pounds, and a rush of adrenaline and cortisol floods your body. So you're ready to either fight this bear or run from the bear. And that's what most of us know as the fight or flight response that humans have developed long ago as a way to protect ourselves from danger. And so all of us have this stress response system, and that stress response system is supposed to turn off when we return to the safety of our cave. But then Dr. Burke Harris poses the question, what happens when you can't experience safety in your cave because the bear is living in the cave with you? I was listening to this as an audiobook, and when I heard her say those words, I just felt this flood of emotion and understanding because it made me remember how I always felt like I was walking on eggshells in my home around my father, who was an alcoholic. And I realized that, along with some other experiences that I had, put my body into a constant state of survival mode. And now I am so hyper aware of my surroundings that I can even tell if a person is angry by the way that they're breathing or the sound of their footsteps on the floor. But for you, maybe the bear isn't your father. Maybe for you, it's your sibling or your spouse Or as Dr. Burke Harris mentions in her book, it can even be the neighborhood that you grow up in. And this was such an eye-opening moment for me to understand that even though I've escaped that cave and I no longer have to live with those bears, why it's so hard to turn off those feelings. Because when you live that way for so long, it's basically like the stress thermostat on your body is broken. A big aha moment about generational trauma. So there's all this evidence that trauma can be passed down to future generations, not only through your behavior, but also through changes in your DNA. And I suggest that you check the book linked below if you really want to hear more about the research about tadpoles and rats, and also things called telomeres that Dr. Burke Harris goes into. But when I was listening to this audiobook, it made me reflect back on my past a lot, and there was this one specific moment that I recall where I was sitting next to my grandmother who was on her deathbed at the nursing home, and she had been diagnosed with lung cancer around 6 months after my father passed away, and she had chosen not to treat it. And she was the sixth person that I would say goodbye to in the space of that year. I think at that time I was sitting next to her in the chair and I was like doing homework, or I was studying for final exams because I was in my last year of undergrad. And I remember looking over at her, and she was tearing off and rolling up bits of the newspaper that she was reading. And that was something that I have been doing for as long as I can remember. Look, I can even show it to you. These are my old Harry Potter books, and you can see how I used to fold and tear the pages inside as I was reading them. And I did this with all of my old books and all of the notebooks in college. And this is something that a past therapist told me is a compulsive behavior that's closely related to anxiety. And it really made me realize that it wasn't just addictions that were running in my family, but also other things like chronic anxiety, hoarding disorder, depression, and more. I've lost loved ones to cigarettes and alcohol, but I've also lost them to things like heart disease and cancer. And I can't help but wonder if I could just go back and give this book to my grandparents or parents, how different things could have been. Well, I might not be a time traveler, but what I can do is use my platform here to spread the word about this topic. And if I can help at least one person with this video, I will consider that a big win in the book of my life. How to break the trauma cycle. There's a saying that goes, hurt people, and I have found that to be so true. And it's one of the biggest reasons that these traumas and negative behaviors get passed on from generation to generation. So to escape this hamster wheel, what we need to do is become cycle breakers. So what is a cycle breaker? Well, it's basically someone who actively makes the choice to interrupt negative patterns or cycles that have been perpetuated through their generations of their family. And they do this by taking conscious actions to positive change in all sorts of ways. I am a cycle breaker in my family, and I've already broken cycles of addiction, and I've also taken huge steps and made a conscious effort to heal other trauma wounds that run in my family. And for me, one of the hardest parts about this was that I had to accept that there are things in my past and present that I cannot change or control. Sometimes I compare my healing journey to what it's like to try to put together a puzzle, except for me, it's really frustrating because there's a lot of the puzzle pieces missing, and there are big gaping holes in my past full of things that I don't understand. And I had to accept that there are questions that I have and things that I can never get closure on because all of the people that could answer the questions or bring me closure have left this world. I know I've mentioned this before in a previous video that I can link up here for you, where I talked about my dad and how he used to say the Serenity Prayer that he learned when he joined Alcoholics Anonymous for a little while. And I still have his AA coin, and I've memorized the words on it. And they are a good reminder for me to focus on the things that I can control and to let go of the things that I can't. But what are those things? What steps can you take to let go of the past and heal toxic stress so that it's not passed down to future generations? Well, in the last chapters of this book, Dr. Burke Harris shares what she calls the ACE antidotes. And these 6 antidotes include things like getting enough rest and good sleep hygiene, taking care of your mental health, which for some of us might mean finding a therapist to work through these issues, practicing mindfulness and meditation, building healthy relationships and letting go of people who are toxic to your well-being, getting enough physical exercise, and eating a balanced and healthy diet. And most of us instinctively know that these things are good and healthy for us, but it's not always easy to make them a daily practice. This isn't something that's just going to happen overnight, but it's going to be something that we need to work towards step by step. Life has good and bad times, and sometimes you're going to feel hurt, but what's important is how you handle that hurt. And you can either let it bring you down or use it as an opportunity to rise up and become an even better and stronger version of yourself. I believe no matter how old you are or how much you've been through, it's never too late to begin to heal your past wounds and traumas and to begin to work towards living a happier and more fulfilling life. So if you're interested in seeing more content like this, make sure to give this video a like and go down and hit the little red subscribe button and ring the bell to turn on all notifications so that you don't miss all of the helpful videos that I share each week here on this channel. And if you're interested in hearing more about my journey and the lessons that I've learned along the way, make sure to go check out this video, or I'll see you next week. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.